Dr. Mollie Marti, and welcome to Resiliency Matters. On today's special edition, you will learn from Heather Forbes, author of 3 books and mother of 2 children adopted from Russia. In her book, Help for Billy, she talks about Andy, a girl or boy whose needs for healthy attachment have been met, and Billy, a girl or boy who has experienced trauma that has negatively affected the brain. Instead of asking, why can't Billy be more like Andy, we'll better understand how to meet Billy's needs. Let's join Heather now as she plays a trivia game at our recent Trauma and Resiliency Symposium, co-sponsored by the National Resilience Institute in Tanager Place. I'll be back with tool number 1.
The experience of feeling hopeless, helpless, and powerless. What is trauma? What is teaching? What is parenting? Nah, you guys got it. You guys got it. What is trauma? All right, but sometimes it is, isn't it? Sometimes you feel like, I don't know what to do. That is the worst feeling in the world. You're a professional. You've had trainings, and you stand there and you go, I don't know what to do. That is a gut-wrenching feeling. So when we can step back and say, the reason our children are doing the things they're doing is because of those experiences that left them in a place of feeling hopeless and helpless and powerless. So let's take an example. Let's say, and I've had a kindergarten teacher tell me she had this little kindergartner, so on our timeline, we're here about 5 years old. This little kindergartner comes in the classroom, he comes in, he stomps his feet, puts his hands on his hips, and he goes, you're not in charge of me, I am. 5 years old. Now, did Andy come in like that? No, Andy came in and ready, he sat down, and he was ready to learn. But now we have Billy, who is telling the teacher, you're not in charge of me. Well, look at that child's history. I guarantee that is a child that has had an experience of feeling completely powerless. When children go through abuse, neglect, these things that are so horrifying where they try to get out of a situation and their efforts render them in a place of being powerless, they then decide, I will never, ever be powerless again. When we look at the developmental timeline here, when Andy is born, what happens by nature is that that baby gives all the power away to the parents. So the baby is dependent 100% on that parent feeding and loving and caring and nurturing them. So by design, we are supposed to give 100% of that dependency over to the caring adult. And that's what growing up is. A little bit along the way, we start taking back a little bit more of our independence till hopefully by 18 or 20 or so, we are now ready to enter the world. That's the Andy life. But somewhere happened to Billy. He didn't wait 18 years to take his power back. He took that back at 5 years old. And that's the problem, is that how are you then going to either parent a child that won't let you be in charge or be a teacher for a child that says, I will not listen to you. And so that's where the conflict happens. So we'll talk about ways to do that, but I just want us to make sure we understand it's not just the experience itself. It's not just abuse. It's just not hopelessness. It's not just poverty. It's not just the sibling rivalry and divorce. It is the feeling itself. And that's what I really want you to focus on, because you will have children that come out of the same family system and the circumstances were the same, but if one child felt that sense of hopelessness, that child will be more traumatized than the other siblings as well. Again, that's why having mentors around children and strong adults is going to alleviate the level of hopelessness that they can fall into. Basically, what you have then is just a stressed out child. You have a child then that doesn't know how to deal with all the stress going into their little body systems and into what is required of them, and they just get to a place of complete dysregulation, and then they act up. Behavior is a form of communication. So when they act up, they're saying, I'm too stressed out. I don't know how to behave. I don't even know how to think right. And we're going to go through what stress does to the brain and how children move to a different part of the brain, and that really influences how they think and how they behave. So when I wrote the Help for Billy book, I was really promoting that we need to ask our students, what do you need? What do you need to make life better? And that may be one of the best techniques I can give you, is that when you don't know what to do with a student or a child, you just sit down and ask them, what do you need? Now, a lot of times you'll get a sarcastic answer, or maybe they just say, I don't know, but many times when you give children a chance to have a voice, because trauma is a place where you have no voice, and you ask them, what is it you really need? You will be surprised that they are the experts. They are the ones who will actually kind of give you a lot of the solutions that you're looking for. And it became very obvious that there were 4 main categories. And the first category was the physiological needs, just having snack time. The second category was about safety. Make kids stop bullying me. Third category was about relationship and love. They were saying, if I had more friends, school would be better. Teachers who like me. Being with my teachers makes school better. Do you see anything on here about a new computer, a new curriculum? These are the things that they're asking for when those basic needs are not met. We have to step back and go, we've got to get down to a much deeper level of being human. And the fourth category was about esteem. And basically, I liked school because I did well. But if I didn't do well, then I didn't like school. And so these 4 categories were very, very clearly resembling something that all of us have probably studied at one time, Maslow's hierarchy. So I took the liberty to make it the hierarchy of learning. What we see at the very top is learning, the academic, the memorizing, the problem solving. These are the things that we can do once the bottom part of the pyramid are satisfied. But if you have a child who is hungry, a child who doesn't feel safe, a child who's not connected, or doesn't feel good about themselves, the academic learning is going to suffer, absolutely. That's why when Andy comes into the classroom, see, Andy has a family system that is able to satisfy these 4 bottom parts of the pyramid. Andy comes into that classroom is ready for the top part to learn. Billy comes in somewhere on the bottom there has not been fulfilled, and then all of a sudden we have challenges. So as much as the school then has to actually become the family. And when we look at that, when the family falls apart, what's the next line of order? It is the school. And that's a big challenge. How many of you all are teachers? Raise your hands, or somehow in the educational field. A good percentage. You're already overwhelmed. And I'm telling you, you got to do a little bit more. So that's the challenge, but that's why bringing the community resources is going to be important into the academic environment as well. But for years and years, we have been focusing on increasing test scores and looking only at that top part of the pyramid. So our challenge now is, we got to look down below. And that is where, if you want to increase test scores, increase your attendance, increase your ability for students to achieve and decrease the suspensions, you don't look at the top of the pyramid, you look at the bottom. So I had this one teacher, and she really started to understand this, and she had a class, I think they were about 2nd grade or so, and she passed out little Post-it notes, and she did her own little survey that basically said, what do you need at school to make learning better? And so she passed this out, and she said, you know what, you don't need to put your name on it, you can say anything, what do you need? What do I not know? What do you need? So she wanted to know that. Well, here we have the response. You are the reason I wake up in the morning to go to school. And when I say the school becomes the family, this is our little 7-year-olds telling us that that's what's happening. Something's happening in his family system where it's falling apart. So obviously we want to try to get some intervention there, but to understand the impact that we can have on children.
And here's tool number 1. To improve learning, we must start with meeting the more basic needs of safety, connection, and self-esteem. Understanding your window of tolerance. Stay with us.
This is your escape from a long day, your Tuesday night routine. It's the 1 hour you reserve just for you. Right now, it's the only thing that will calm him down. That's why at Mediacom, we're working harder to bring you more superior TV entertainment every day. Greater reliability, incredible picture and sound. So from the big screen to the little screen, to the great outdoors, nothing gets in the way of the things you love.
With TiVo, you can record shows to watch later, of course, but you can also access popular video apps right on your TV. And you can watch your recordings or stream live TV on your mobile device, making any screen in your home a TV screen. TiVo's free app even lets you schedule your recordings when you're not at home.
Seriously, you have to watch this show.
Don't mind if I do. With TiVo, you'll never have to miss a thing. For special offers on TiVo, call 888-SIMPLIFY.
Welcome back to Resiliency Matters. In this segment, you will hear about Antoinette, an elementary school clerk in Atlanta who connected with a potential school shooter in such a way that she convinced him to put down his assault rifle and ammunition and surrender. No students were injured that day. To watch the video, search ABC News and Antoinette Tough, or go to the link displayed here. We'll now rejoin Heather, and I will be back with tool number 2.
So there's 2 words that I like to be able to work with, and the first is regulation, and then dysregulation. Regulation, just by definition, is the ability to experience and maintain stress within one window of tolerance, generally referred to as being calm, focused, or relaxed. The term is utilized by literally every scientific discipline. So you all are regulated right now. You have some coffee, you have some soda, you have some carbs, you're good. Now, in about an hour and a half or so, you will start to get dysregulated. Dysregulated is the experience of stress outside of one's window of tolerance, generally referred to as being stressed out or in a state of distress. It is believed that affect dysregulation is a fundamental mechanism involved in all psychiatric disorders. Now that's a pretty bold statement, but when we look at some of the diagnostic pieces for our students and our children, that's a label. And a lot of the labels we need for funding and for a deeper understanding, but from a day in and day out basis, what I want us to look at is that you then have a child that is just chronically dysregulated. Instead of just working at that label level, and look at their behaviors are stemming from that internal place of dysregulation. Now the power of that is that puts us in a place to say, well, if you are dysregulated, then my job is to help you get regulated. We know how to do this, hopefully, as adults. You know when to take care of your needs, and you know when you need a break, and you know when to call someone just to be able to connect and feel better. Our abilities have no coping mechanisms on how to regulate. Especially, you will see this very clearly, though, on the teenage years, is that now then if we have Billies who have not had the proper intervention and have not been taught how to regulate their body systems, what are our teens using to regulate? Drugs, alcohol, video games, sex, all the things, all the external pieces they're using to try to regulate that internal body. If we had taught them early on how to get connected, how to regulate, you would see less of that as well. So this is why I say that a lot of times it really does make sense to why our kids do the things they do, because they're just working from a place that says, I just need to get regulated. I need to learn. I need to feel better. I'm chronically dysregulated. That's not a good feeling. And how am I going to use the external environment to get back down to a place of regulation? So I really challenge you to use these 2 terms in your daily life. You can just try it out today. Like maybe you go to the grocery store right after this, and the clerk says that you find everything, how you're doing, and you know what I want you to say? I want you to say, oh, I'm really dysregulated right now. They actually might pay attention. But really, if you walk into your home or you walk into that classroom and you are off, you are not regulated, I want you to call it as it is and say, I'm a little dysregulated right now. In the classroom, we can help kids learn this idea not just as a lesson in itself, but we can weave it into the academics. When you are reading a story, maybe here's our timeline, more elementary school, or maybe if you're having students do a book report or some character analysis in middle school or high school, can you not just make one of the questions to say, which character was most dysregulated? What were they doing to try to get regulated? So you help them to start use this terminology on somebody else, which then eventually it makes it a little bit easier to use it on themselves. When we think about how to create a classroom that is a regulatory classroom, how to create a home environment that supports regulation, I want us to think about not just the environment, but actually the most important piece. And you know what that is? It's you. Your ability to be in a place of regulation has everything to do how students are going to react. In that little video with Antoinette, was she regulated or dysregulated? She was regulated. She was right there. Was she scared? Well, sure. But she put that aside and said, I'm going to be in a place of love and regulation, and I'm going to be right here. If she had gone into a panic and started yelling and started screaming at that young man, do you think we would have had the same results? Not at all. I mean, every one of us has actually seen that happen in a little bit different environment. Let's say you're in the middle of Walmart and it's about 9 or 10 o'clock at night and it's late and you see a family, because it's not going to be yours, it's somebody else's always. You see a family and the kids are dysregulated and they're hungry and they're out of control and the parent is getting upset. And the parent says what to the child? Calm down, calm down, calm down right now. Now you all have never done that yourself. This is what you've witnessed. But you cannot calm down somebody if you not calm down yourself. When we talk about being trauma-informed, it's not just about children. It's about adults and the interaction. We all have done things that we don't want to own up to because we're embarrassed. We're like, wow, I can't even believe I said that to them. Why did you do that? Because you were just like Billy. You were, for some reason, just at your breaking point, and it probably took just one little thing to throw you over the edge. It's not really the big things that throws Billy, and this is why. This is what I want you to see, is that Billy is just being Billy based off of Billy's experiences. And to look at Billy and say, you're being bad, you need to go to timeout, you need to behave, and you need to shape up, is really unfair, because Billy doesn't have the nervous system at that point to actually be able to do that. What would be fair then would be to say, how can I help you increase that window of tolerance? How can I help you de-stress? How can I help you get back to a place of center? This is where we have to start regulating how much we ask kids to do. Because we can ask Andy to be in school all day long and go through state testing and then still go to football practice and still go home and do his homework and get up and do the same thing the next day. Can Billy do that? No. So sometimes when I work with schools, we really work to maybe adjust the IEP, how much activity, how much homework is going to be. We scale back, scale back, scale back. This is, when you see a Billy, and you might have a party that weekend at where? Chuck E. Cheese. Would you take Billy to Chuck E. Cheese? Because Chuck E. Cheese is just not right. It's not natural. It is not natural. Who in this room can go to Chuck E. Cheese and stay regulated? The one person that raised his hand and said, that's what the beer is for there. And it's not a punishment, it's just simply to say, it is my responsibility to make sure I always put you in an environment that is healthy for you. What I'm going to do then is then pull you back into a relationship, give you some coping mechanisms, and my job then is to help you rebuild that window of stress tolerance. This is the beauty that I see that we're able to do with our students when we really scale back and step back and be able to help them in those very deep needs that have not been met. We help them build their windows of tolerances.
And here is tool number 2. We each have a window of stress tolerance shaped by our life circumstances. When children have moved beyond their window into a state of dysregulation, it is our job to connect with them and help them regulate themselves. Understanding your brain on stress when we return.
This is your escape from a long day, your Tuesday night routine. It's the 1 hour you reserve just for you. Right now, it's the only thing that will calm him down. That's why at Mediacom, we're working harder to bring you more superior TV entertainment every day. Greater reliability, incredible picture and sound. So from the big screen to the little screen, to the great outdoors, nothing gets in the way of the things you love.
With TiVo, you can record shows to watch later, of course, but you can also access popular video apps right on your TV. And you can watch your recordings or stream live TV on your mobile device, making any screen in your home a TV screen. TiVo's free app even lets you schedule your recordings when you're not at home.
Seriously, you have to watch this show.
Don't mind if I do. With TiVo, you'll never have to miss a thing. For special offers on TiVo, call 888-SIMPLIFY.
Welcome back to Resiliency Matters. To set up our next segment, I want to share a simple brain model based on the work of Dr. Dan Siegel. Hold up your hand like this. Take your thumb, place it in the middle of your hand, and wrap your fingers around it. Down here we have your spinal cord coming up into the brainstem that controls your heart rate, blood pressure, circulation, sometimes called the reptilian brain. Your thumb is your limbic brain area. We call this your downstairs brain. It self-regulates arousal, your emotions, and your survival instinct, fight, flight, or freeze response. Heather calls this your midbrain. Your fingers are your cortex, your upstairs brain, that allows you to think and reason. It governs relationship building, learning, problem solving, delayed gratification, a sense of right or wrong, and it regulates the lower systems. When we get stressed or someone pushes your buttons, our emotions rise up and flip our lid. When we flip our lid, we're no longer in our upstairs brain, no longer flexible in problem-solving mode or delayed gratification mode. We're thinking about the right now. We're thinking in win-lose terms, and we want to win. This is adaptive when there's true threat. Say a bear is coming at me. I want to be in downstairs brain mode, survival mode. I don't want to be building relationship with that bear. Being in the downstairs brain hypes up my amygdala. Within a quarter of a second, cortisol and adrenaline are flooding my bloodstream, making my heart rate faster, making my lungs dilate, allowing me to fight or run, making my pupils dilate, allowing me to assess threat. This makes my hippocampus, which converts experience into memories, go offline because it might be too painful to remember. This makes my executive functioning, which allows good, thoughtful decisions, go offline because I want to make quick, impulsive decisions to keep me alive when fighting a bear. Most of us can get our upstairs brain back online pretty quickly. We re-regulate. But when you're living in chronic toxic stress all the time, perceiving threats all around you, then your immune system gets jacked up for a long period of time and it gets fatigued. You're unable to fight off disease or illness. This is why adverse childhood experiences and chronic toxic stress, when we're always flipping our lid, are linked to lifelong negative health conditions. With that background, let's rejoin Heather as she talks about re-regulating our brains when stressed, and I'll be back with our final takeaway.
This part of the brain is about win or lose. So if you try to go into a power struggle where the student is in the midbrain, it will be no one wins, but they will typically try to win. They will have the last word, they will have the last say, they will have the last action, they have to win. Top-down control, again, right or wrong. But the minute you go into that midbrain, it is about win or lose. When children live in this part of the brain, and again, on the developmental timeline, when they've lived in a lot of stress and a lot of fear their whole lives, their perception of the world becomes fear-based. Everything that they interpret has a little lens of fear onto it. And let me give you an example of this. I'm actually working on a preschool, early elementary school curriculum. The graphic designer said to me, she goes, I need to get a picture to fit in this slot of a child that's really sad. So the illustrator sent her this picture and said, okay, here's this little boy or this little monkey that's sad. And she wrote me back and she goes, he's not sad, he's scared. Because in this picture, because of her history, she had 14 years of severe neglect and abandonment. What is she reading about that little train? That little monkey's been left. And no, the intention by the illustrator was he was sad because he was too short to be able to go on the train. And so then the illustrator said, okay, here, I'll send you a picture of a monkey that is sad. So here we go, we have a monkey that's sad. And she goes, okay, that works. And I was like, it's the same monkey. It's exactly the same monkey here. But it's the context of interpretation. So you may think that you're saying one thing, but because of the lens of fear, they're going to interpret it in a completely different way. And Andy will see both of those as sad, but your Billy's going to see that one on the left as very scared. This is why traditional approaches really don't work. When we put in even positive reinforcers, token economies, money moolah, point charts, sticker charts. I mean, Billy would rather eat the stickers than earn the stickers. It doesn't work because when you are in the midbrain, you are not thinking that I need to get all those stickers to go to Fun Friday. That is not within the realm of thinking. It says, I want it and I want it now. And you can't stop me. When you are talking to a student in the midbrain, again, they're not thinking logically. If you're trying to give logic, if you're trying to give rational thought, who are you talking to? You're talking to a lizard. And again, I reflect back on the video with Antoinette. When that student was clearly in the reptilian brain, she did not give him logic. She did not give him rational thinking. She said, I love you. If you want to move to a top-down control, take out the behavioral pieces and just get into a relationship at that very moment. Once that student is in that top-down control, then yes, that's when you can teach the lesson that it's not okay to hit Billy. It's not okay to be bad. It's not okay to do these things that our kids do. But if you try to teach that lesson right in the moment, you will get a student then that actually acts worse. Who knows what I'm talking about here? And that's why. That's the science behind that. That's the hardest piece, is that you want to correct it in the moment. It's not about that. It's not about the behavior. It's about the regulation. That's what I want you to see, that this is a regulatory issue, not a behavioral issue. So when you're now working with Billy, I want you to think about the questions that we have always asked. We've always said, okay, how do I get Billy to change his behavior? How do I get Billy to sit still? How do I get Billy to be respectful? How do I get Billy to show up to school? How do I get Billy to move from class to class without hitting anyone in the hallway? We've focused everything on behavior. This is not a behavioral problem. So I want you to throw out that question. Cancel that question. I never want you to answer that question or ask that question again. Because if you ask the wrong question, you will get the wrong answer. So now you're like, well, what question do I ask? I have it for you here. What is driving Billy's behavior? The minute you see Billy disrespecting you, and it might be straight in your face where he is giving you the F-bomb and telling you to, you know what? I don't want you to correct it right there. I want you to stop for a moment and say, what is driving this behavior? You may not always know, and so at that moment, you can actually go to the second question. The second question, understanding the fear, stress, and overwhelm, will put you in a place then to say, okay, what can I do at this very moment to improve my relationship with this student? What can I do? But do you see how opposite that is from our culture, from the way that we've been raised, from the way that we've been taught, and the trainings we've attended? I'm asking you to go into relationship at the moment that they are most dysregulated. And again, that's what we saw with Antoinette. She understood this kid doesn't belong. This kid does not feel like he is part of this school. He needs to be seen. Again, think about the logic from Billy's perspective in that video. If Billy doesn't belong, if Billy is invisible, if you bring guns to school, what are you? You are indeed visible.
And tool number 3, shift from trying to stop or fix a child's behavior to ask what is driving the behavior and what can I do in this moment to improve our relationship. The key is to go into relationship when you least feel like it, when the child is most dysregulated. Helping our kids be seen. So very powerful. Thanks to Heather Forbes for her presentation and to our valued partners, Tanager Place and MediaCom. And thanks to you for joining us on Resiliency Matters on MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.